By now, you should be familiar with the name Caitlin Clark. The sharpshooting star was busy setting records all year at Iowa, making it back to the national championship game. Now she will take her talents to the WNBA. She was drafted first overall by the Indiana Fever. What will that transition be like? I think everyone wants to know. Someone knows it pretty well, someone from our own backyard. Former Villanova star Maddy Siegrist was the third overall pick in the WNBA draft back in 2023, going to the Dallas Wings. So I caught up with her to talk about what that transition to the pros will be like. Also, what's it like covering WNBA madness right now? For that, we turn to a Temple grad, Alexa Ross. She's with CBS 4 in Indianapolis, so she's going to be covering the Caitlin Clark madness this year. I know she can't wait for that. And also, I talk with both of them about the question of, should Philadelphia get its own WNBA team? I think a lot of people around here are pining for one with the way things are going. So let's start off here on A Gallen of Questions. My name is Pat Gallen. Our first guest is Maddy Siegrist. Maddy, it's good to see you. What's going on these days? What are you up to? You seem pretty busy.
Yeah, just running around. Nice to see you too. Just getting ready for the Wings season to start. Left my job at Villanova last week, and I'm home for the weekend now.
Yeah, so third overall pick in the WNBA draft last year. What has this journey been like for you, with your first season down going into year two?
Just been like an incredible journey. I can't believe it was just last year. It feels like so long ago, and then like I see all them. It's like memories 1 year ago today, and I'm like, oh my gosh! But it's been great. I've been on a great Dallas team last year. Finished fourth in the league, which was awesome. Incredible playoff run, and then to be working out my alma mater, working out there has just been like a dream come true. So I'm super excited going into year two. I feel like you're so much more prepared after the first year for sure.
You kind of alluded to it here, but what is, as you get used to life in the WNBA with being back at Villanova as well, what is an off season like for you right now? Is there any downtime at all?
Yeah, so there's definitely like some more downtime. I knew not going overseas this year I would have like a longer time to focus on like recovery after the season ended, which I haven't done a ton in college. And just from going right from the college season at Villanova right to the pros last year was just, a whirlwind. So really take time to, let your body recover. And then, I had 3 or 4 months to really train my body, whether that was like Pilates, yoga, lifting, basketball, really being able to, make a plan for that week based on like where my body was at, how much time I had. And then was able to play in Athletes Unlimited, which was a league which happened to be in Dallas, which was great. And play like 15 games in like 5 weeks. So you get almost a whole overseas season done in, a little over a month.
The popularity of women's basketball has been rising in recent years. You were obviously part of it, in your couple of seasons at Villanova. But this year seems like it's hit another level. There are many reasons for that. But in your estimation, what do you think the key reasons are for the way that this has just skyrocketed?
Well, first I'm like so honored to be a part of like this, like not even change we're seeing, but I guess change and like the growing popularity of women's basketball. And I think it has to do with like, access, honestly. And, the Women's March Madness tournament wasn't called March Madness 3 years ago. Only like my junior year in college was it able to use that branding. So
Right.
I think seeing that and ESPN putting every March Madness game on TV, if you build it, people will come. Like people are watching it. So I think that adds to it. And, social media, there's so many popular women's basketball players now. I mean, they've always been, but now it's easy. Like you can look somebody up like, okay, like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Aaliyah Boston, Cameron Brake. There's so many people there that you could just, find in a second, or they're on your For You page or on your Explorer page. So I think, that's just drawing more and more fans in to the college game and, to the W as well.
The ratings for the women's tournament were outrageous, and culminating with the national championship game, best all-time TV ratings. It's easy to see why. 2 incredible teams, Caitlin Clark, at the height of her popularity. But how did that make you feel knowing that it had reached that level?
I mean, it's great. I think everybody was talking about it. I spoke at a conference at Villanova that day in the law school, and just like how many like people were asking me, like adult men, like lawyers, like, so what do you think? Who do you think is going to win tonight? And I'm like, wow, like this is just such a shift in the game, and just to be able to be a part of that shift has been huge.
What was it like as an incredible scorer like yourself watching Caitlin Clark take it to not only the next level, but really the only level in women's college basketball history?
Yeah, I mean, I think, not only is she a terrific scorer, but she's an amazing passer too. She gets her teammates the ball in great spots to succeed. And I think, that's, a tribute to her as a great player. And luckily, a lot of the award ceremonies last year, I got to meet her, hang out with her, and she's such a nice, person. I couldn't be more happy for her.
And now she's with the Indiana Fever. She's going to be tasked with turning things around. How, knowing what you know now about taking that leap, being the third overall pick last year, how difficult of a jump is that?
Yeah, I think, it's extremely hard. And I think it's so much harder than you think because it's such a short period of time. Like, there's, with the men, there's pre-draft, stuff like that. There's really not that for on the women's side. It's such like okay, you finish college, 2 weeks later you get drafted, a week later you're moving there. And it's like boom, boom, boom. So I think that makes it harder. I know that was tough for me because you're living in a dorm, and then a week later you're on the other side of the country. But I think the speed, like the physicality, takes a little adjustment. But you know what, she's a great player, and I think everyone's got to give her a little grace. She might not have 35 in the first game, but she could. So I think just going in with that kind of mindset, and like there's always an adjustment period, whether it's the beginning and the middle of the end. So. Just trying to remember that.
You finish up your collegiate career, and then the draft is just a few days basically after that, and then you're in a new city. Like, what was that like mentally for you, physically as well? Like, the exhaustion must have been there, but for the mental side of things, that's got to throw you for a loop.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough. I remember we were playing in the Sweet 16, and you come back, and I had like 48 hours to decide. And I kind of knew I wasn't coming back. I was going to go to the draft, but, you still have to exhaust those conversations. And then you're like, wait, maybe I should go back. And it's like a weird 48 hours. Then you decide. And then, I was so fortunate last year, all the National Player of the Year awards that year. I was in LA, then I was in Dallas for an awards, then I'm back in New York, and then I went right to the draft in New York City. You hear your name, you get picked. We had orientation after the draft for 2 days. Then I finally went to Villanova, packed my stuff, went home, and then I was just like moving. I remember all my roommates were like sitting there like helping me pack, and it's like, wow, that's it. Like, you're not gonna be back here until the fall. And I was like, I don't think so. Like, I hope not. Like, I hope I stay there and it goes great. So it's hard too, and I think you're leaving your friends, and like that's tough. That was tough for me. And your family. Like, Villanova's 3 hours from my house. So knowing, I didn't go home a lot, but knowing that you could go home, I think is very different. Then when I got to Dallas, I knew it's a plane ride away. So my family came out a ton to visit, but still, like, you can't go home.
Right.
Like, there's no hopping on a plane until All-Star break. So that's definitely like the toughest part for me.
So with all that being said and all that you've gone through, how much further do we have to go when it comes to women's professional basketball? What's missing in your estimation after having been through this for a season now, and how can it gain even more popularity, and how can the league capitalize on what we just saw with women's basketball?
Yeah, I think just continuing. I do think like a lot of fans are going to follow these star college players this year, which is great. And I think that always, we saw that with Aaliyah Boston. It's been happening, but just continue viewership. And I think, you see the ticket prices are up more than they've ever been. And I think that's great for the game. And the more people tune in and watch, the more the league generates revenue. And, I think eventually people want, you want basketball being played during basketball season, and, not, more and more players aren't going overseas. But I hope that in my playing time in the WNBA that you don't have to go overseas at all if you don't want to, that you're making enough here, and not just with endorsements, because I understand not every player has access to that or is in that kind of market. So I think that would be the goal. And then hopefully in the near future is charter flights for sure. Because going from chartering in college to back in the playing with everybody else is very different.
Yeah, what is it like then? Because obviously so much has been made since the draft about WNBA salaries. Like, how much time are you spending, or your agent, or you have someone behind the scenes trying to work on those endorsement deals?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate. I have Erin Kane at Excel, and she's awesome. So I remember the draft, like 2 days later, I signed a Puma contract with footwear, and I would say in the league, probably like 20%, maybe less, have some type of shoe contract.
Wow.
Which everyone, if not, you default to Nike, like the league sponsored by Nike, so that's what you'll wear. And then just like different like social media, it really allows people, I would say, with all different followings. Like, some people have 6,000 followers, some people have 1 million. So there's all different like levels of who wants you to market for them. Which some people's agents don't do that, some do. And then the off season is like the big thing, is like, what are you going to do in the off season? Like, some players can do appearances and that, like, they're that well known, and others don't really have that option. So it's more, I feel like, pressure to go overseas. But more and more now we're seeing, like, I think there was like 12 players total that did something similar to what I did, whether it was like player development coach, like some type of on staff in women's basketball in college.
So this will be my last question for you. We just heard from the commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, about the possibility of Philadelphia being a new WNBA team in the near future. You know the area pretty well. Would it succeed here? Like, does Philly need a team?
I mean, I think so, for sure. I think there's enough fans. I know the big thing is like there's so many sports teams in Philadelphia, but I think people will come. I really do. I think there's such a strong, basketball tradition there. And like DC draws really well, so I would think Philly would draw pretty well. And I think, as many teams as they could add is just, that many more jobs. Like, there's so many talented players that, like, are having such a tough time making a roster. We're seeing this every year. So I think, with expansion, we'll see that much more talent in the league. And I think that's great.
We're back here on a Gallen of Questions. My next guest is Alexa Ross. She's a Temple grad, and she works for our sister station in Indianapolis, CBS 4. Hi, Alexa. How are you?
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's talk about you and how, like, what's your journey into media? I try to get, like, the background story on everyone before we get into the juicy details of what we're talking about today.
Yeah, I grew up in Montgomery County. I then went to Temple for journalism, had a great time there. Ended up going to upstate New York, 2 different spots before I ended up here in Indianapolis. I've been in the industry just over 5 years now, having a great time, and really happy with the state of my career, and the sports landscape. So, there's no shortage of things to cover here, that's for sure. And it only got more exciting last week.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the next thing on the list, is obviously who you cover, what you cover, and we just talked with Maddy Siegrist, former star of Villanova University, now in the WNBA. We talked about how much Caitlin Clark has meant to the game of women's basketball in general. She's now going to be with the Indiana Fever. She was the first overall draft pick. So that means you're going to be attached to the hip of Caitlin Clark now for good. Are you cool with that?
I am. You know what? I was cool with it with Aaliyah Boston, and our hips were definitely it was a bigger shift when you have somebody who's, she's much, much taller. But to have an incredible post player like Aaliyah, to then now have a generational talent at point guard like Caitlin, these are the kinds of things that change franchises. And it's not just Caitlin's changing women's basketball, but as you look at what she's going to be able to do with the talent that's already here on a fairly young team anyway, W teams that have the number 1 overall pick back-to-back within like 4 years on average win championships. So expectations are really high for her, as not just, within the franchise, but obviously externally. There are a lot of conversations about will her game translate, things like that. But, it's all ball at the end of the day.
And you were there with her when she was selected first overall by Indiana at the WNBA draft. What was that entire spectacle like?
Yeah, the Brooklyn Academy of Music was the place to be last Monday night. I mean, you had to be there, and everyone who was everyone in women's basketball was there. Honestly, the who's who of sports, for the most part, were there. And between Caitlin and Cameron Brink and all of the incredible talent that, Camila Cardoso, Angel Reese, the fits were going off. Everybody was emotional as they were picked. Caitlin is a stoic person. She's been stoic through her career. Just see her have that smile in that moment with her family, hug everybody, stay in the Midwest. You can tell she's not so much of the big city girl. So Brooklyn wasn't really, it wasn't necessarily her scene, but she gave us all time at the end of her draft night after she spoke with general manager Lynn Dunn and head coach Christy Sides. And she was just, you could tell she's just ready to move on and have this next chapter be the thing that she's been working towards since she was in elementary school.
What would you say the temperature is like, for lack of a better term, out where you are right now, knowing that they've got Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston teaming up, the biggest star in maybe not only women's sports, but one of the biggest stars now in the sports world coming to that area? I know season tickets and television numbers are off the charts right now, but what's the vibe there in Indianapolis?
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, if you're not from Indiana, the joke is that, like, in 49 other states, it's just basketball, but this is Indiana. It's the place of Hoosiers. It's the place that has a team that was just in the national championship. It's, the biggest high school gyms. 7 of the 10 biggest high school gyms in the country are here. So they don't play when it comes to basketball. And to see the women's team, a team that hasn't won a championship since 2012, be able to have this, excitement and buzz, and just to get people in the seats in Gainbridge for women's hoops, it's phenomenal.
Well, then that's the perfect segue, since you've been following this now for a long time, is that here in Philadelphia, we might be getting a WNBA team within the next few years. Cathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the WNBA, came out and said that Philadelphia is one of the cities on the list. Do you think it would thrive here? And how excited would you be? I know you're in Indianapolis, but you're still a Philly girl. Like, how excited would you be about that being here?
I would be the first application on that staff to get on that staff the second the expansion comes. I think at this point it's a if not, it's a when not if kind of situation. Cathy Engelbert has talked a lot about Philly as a possible expansion site in the first round of expansion. It's just been kind of an ongoing talk situation. It's just a matter of when that will happen. I think it will thrive here because Philly is, it's the land of the Big Five. The Sixers say what you will about the Sixers, but there's a lot of love for basketball in this city too, especially with, and a lot of people continue, rightfully so, to hold on to Dawn Staley as a big name in Philadelphia women's basketball. Sure. Former coach, North Philadelphia native. I think that it's the perfect place for this to come, the perfect place for this to happen. I think it would just be really widely accepted, and I think that people would really enjoy it, especially if they were able to get Dawn back. I know she makes a ton of money at South Carolina. They definitely have to throw the bag at her, but I think she'll be involved one way or the other, whether that be ownership, coaching, things like that. But I really think that the W would be huge in Philadelphia.
I do what's called a Gallen of Questions. I got this trusty can right here that's got all sorts of stickers on it, but more importantly has some great questions in it. Should we run through and see what you can answer? And we got a minute or two left here. Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What made you want to get into this business? That's the first question.
That's a great question. Probably my lifelong Eagles fandom and my father's season ticket hood. Shout out to the link in the vet.
Good job, Pops. Did you own any jerseys growing up?
Yes, I had a McNabb jersey, I had an Iverson jersey, and then I didn't buy my own jersey because I was so superstitious until way later. I bought the Spectrum City Edition Joel Embiid jersey, and that kind of gave me like the permission to buy jerseys again.
That's a good choice. I love those. I think they should bring those back, actually.
I think
one piece of advice. You think they will?
I just think they're gorgeous. They should. They're great.
They should for sure. One piece of advice for anyone who wants to get into media.
Take every opportunity that you can and don't let no discourage you.
Don't take no for an answer. It's good. What do you put in your coffee? Do you drink coffee?
I'm not a coffee drinker. I am a tea drinker. So, yeah, I don't drink coffee I do Diet Coke and Celsius for my caffeine.
What kind of tea?
I drink everything. I drink everything. I love a green though. I love a nice green, a nice peppermint,
Yeah, I like that too. The Tazo Zen, that's my go-to.
That's a good one.
Favorite WNBA player?
Well, of all time, I'm going to say
Sure.
gut instinct is super. I got to say Lisa Leslie. I mean, they're on my Mount Rushmore. Excited to see what Caitlin does, and Aaliyah has been an absolute star.
All right. We can only get to one more. Rank the Philly athletes. Rank them. Embiid, Harper, Hurts.
Oh my God, this is like asking me to pick a favorite child.
You don't have children yet, so you're allowed to do that.
Yeah, that's fair. I think in that order, as of right now, as it stands in this moment, because the Sixers and the Phillies are in season right now. They're currently playing.
A little bit of a cop-out, but we'll let you slide. Alexa, thanks so much for catching up with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.